Alexis Lloyd. I'm the head of design innovation at Automattic, and I was super excited when Ashley called me and asked me to host and curate this customer experience symposium this year. And as I was putting together the agenda and thinking through what are the important things for us to be talking and thinking about right now in this moment, I was reflecting a little bit on this term, customer experience, which is kind of the latest in an evolution of the language that we use to talk about this work that we do. And as I was looking at this evolution, I was really encouraged because I think what we see here is that we've been thinking about this work of experience design in a much more broad and expansive way over the years. So we started out talking about things like interaction design and information architecture, these really narrow experiences, these moments of interactions with a digital product. And then we kind of expanded out from there and said, well, those moments happen within the course of this bigger user journey that someone takes in the course of using this product. And now I think we're really stepping back and saying, well, actually, this thing that I'm making is just one small context in the midst of someone's life, in the midst of all the contexts that they move between, all the different kinds of needs that they have. And I find that really inspiring and encouraging because that's why I do this work, because maybe I should whisper this, but we're not building experiences for brands. We're not building experiences for companies. We're building experiences for the people who are going to be using them. And so we really need to be thinking about what are those experiences and how do we advocate to make sure that they're valuable and positive ones for people. And so in my work, I've had this great opportunity throughout my career to always kind of work with one foot in the present and one foot in the future. So I lead teams in creating digital products and experiences for today, but I also work with companies to look at emerging technologies and to better understand what the affordances of those technologies are, what the potential challenges and opportunities might be, and how they can help us shape the experiences we build for the future. And the great thing about designing with technology is that we're not making static artifacts. We're not designing objects, we're designing systems. And we make these interfaces that are really ways of engaging with the world. So if we just stop and look at this for a minute, this is powerful work that we do. We are designing systems for how people engage with the world around them. And so it's really critical that we ask ourselves, what kinds of systems should we be building? What are the values that those have? What kinds of design principles do we put into play when we create them? So the thing that I like to talk about in my work is the idea of playable systems. And when I say playable systems, what I mean is that when technology is designed well, it is something that can empower people and give them agency. So I was recently reading The Real World of Technology by Ursula Franklin. This is a lecture series that she gave in 1989 and feels like it could have been written yesterday. And she talks about this idea of holistic versus prescriptive technologies. And she describes a holistic technology as one that leaves the individual in control of a process of creating or doing something. And prescriptive technologies, on the other hand, are what they sound like. They prescribe how you should do something. They're regimented. They don't give space for creative agency. And so when I talk about playable systems, I'm talking about these kinds of holistic technologies. And playable systems do these three things. They keep the human in the loop. So when we're designing with technology, we're often talking about automating tasks or decisions. And it's really critical that we not automate agency away from people in the moments when they need it most. Playable systems are legible systems. So we can only go so far in working with black boxes, that we need to be able to understand what a system does in order to interrogate it, in order to really engage with it. And finally, playable systems can evolve in creative ways. So they're open enough that they can allow for emergent behavior, that they can expand and evolve beyond their initial intent or framing. And I've been thinking about this a lot in the context of the open web. And Anil Dash was talking on Thursday about making the web weird again. And so the reason the web was weird in the first place is because it's a playable system, because it can do all these things. It is a holistic technology. And part of the reason it feels a little different now is because when we look at the growth of these closed platforms, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, they're not holistic technologies, they are prescriptive ones. So they are not legible. We don't know what the Facebook algorithm is doing. We can't interrogate it. And they can't evolve beyond the way that they've prescribed that you can express yourself. And so I'm going to show, I worked with an animator on a short, like 2 to 3 minute kind of visual meditation on what these spaces feel like, what it feels like to be in this kind of closed prescriptive system versus the open system. So I'm going to play that for you right now.
Take a deep breath. Pause and notice the sensations of your body. Relax your arms. Feel your breath moving in and out. Now imagine you're standing in a field. The grass is green, there's a light breeze, the air is warm. With each breath in, imagine you are getting lighter and lighter. With a little help from the breeze, you begin to float upwards. As you rise higher and fly around, you see something down below through the clouds. As you get closer, the air gets smoggier, and you realize it's a vast metropolis. It's surrounded by high concrete walls, completely contained. Inside, it's bustling. Lots of honking traffic, people everywhere. The sound is deafening. You see people arguing in bars and chatting on street corners. Billboards and advertisements are everywhere, touting every kind of good and service. It's noisy and dense and overwhelming. You float back up, flying out of the city smog and into clear air. As you fly, you encounter a sprawling suburbia. It has walls and hedges too, but they're shinier and newer. The residents are still bustling and chatting, but there's less noise. The streets and houses are picture perfect. The people pay a lot of attention to how they dress. But all the houses are boxy and identical, and they're all on identical streets in a perfect grid. When you look closer at some of the houses, you realize they're actually just billboards made to look like someone lives there. You fly back up and want to see what else is out there in the world. As the suburbs fade into the distance, the rest of the world comes into focus on the horizon. You see farmsteads in remote corners of the countryside. You see riverside factories. You see backpackers on mountainsides. You see small settlements and emerging new cities. You see apartment buildings and straw huts, sprawling homesteads and local churches. This diverse group of people value their freedom, but they dream of some of the comforts of city and suburban life. Utilities and services, same-day mail delivery, cable TV, corner stores with all the amenities. They want ways to make their houses bigger and stronger, tools to make their business more valuable for customers, and roads to connect them to other people. Eventually, you fly past the last settlement and find yourself back in an open field. And as your breathing slows, you get heavier and heavier until eventually you settle back down to earth.
So when we look to building these future experiences, what do those spaces feel like? What are the kinds of experiences we want to build? And when we're designing with new technologies, how do we move beyond this question of what can we do? Like, what can I shove the blockchain into next? Or like, how do I get my Alexa to talk to my toilet? Real product, look it up. But how do we move beyond that to this, what should we do? From the how to the why. And I think that's, we've got a group of speakers here this morning who are all going to be speaking to different aspects of the kinds of things that we need to be thinking about as we think about designing for the experiences of the future. So first of all, when we design for future experiences, we need to be, as designers, engaging with new and emerging technologies. And I think often we're not the first out of the gate with that because they can feel foreign or intimidating. And what that means is that we're often not the ones who get to shape what those first experiences with new technologies feel like. And so Josh Clark's going to be talking this morning about AI as a new design material and how you approach that and how you can incorporate that into your practice. We also need to be thinking about technology not just as kind of a neutral functional tool, but one that can really work to create emotionally engaging experiences for people. And Steph Hay is going to be talking about incorporating emotion into experience design, especially with her work with conversational interfaces. And finally, as we talk about playable systems, those systems need to be playable by everybody. They need to be accessible and give people agency regardless of their situation or ability. So Chimi Kalu is going to be talking about accessibility and inclusive design and how to incorporate accessibility into your design process from the beginning as an integrated, thoughtful piece of it rather than something that gets ignored or tacked on at the end. And so I think we're going to have a really rich, meaty conversation this morning, and I hope that at the end of this that you walk away feeling a little bit more empowered to stand as someone with one foot in the present and one foot in the future, where you can not only design great experiences for people today, but that we can also help to lead and shape the conversation about what kinds of experiences we want to be creating for the future.